The vast emptiness of space swallowed the sleek, predatory shape of the Clivax slaver vessel as it drifted into orbit over an unassuming blue planet. The crew inside moved with the confidence of seasoned hunters, their chitinous exoskeletons clicking in anticipation. Humans were a curiosity, a species barely known beyond the outer rim. Soft, primitive, weak. A perfect acquisition for the markets. The captain, Zalvok, watched through the viewing screen as his scouting drones descended unseen, cloaked against the dull-witted security of this planet. They had done this 1,000 times. This was just another routine harvest. The scanner pinged. A youngling, separated from the others, wandering near a dimly lit playground. His features were small, delicate, valuable. The perfect target. The order was given. In a blink, the containment beam fired. The boy was there, then gone, whisked into the sterile hold of the ship, unconscious before he could scream. The crew barely gave him a glance. Another specimen. Another payday. The ship's engines hummed to life. They left the system undetected, just as planned. The moment John Carter entered the room, the air changed. The operative sitting at the console swallowed hard, eyes flicking between Carter and the scrambled surveillance footage of the abduction. Confirmed, the tech stammered. It was the Clivax. Standard slaver procedure. No ransom. No demands. They took him like he was nothing. Carter didn't move. His face was unreadable, but the air around him seemed to tighten. The weight of something unseen pressed down. Heavy, suffocating. The room, filled with battle-hardened operatives, stood in silence. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe. They knew who he was. What he was. Baba Yaga. The stories were legend. Whispers in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The assassin who left no survivors. The ghost that entire warlords feared to name. And someone had taken his son. John exhaled, slow and measured. Way! The tech hesitated. We traced the trajectory. They're heading for the Gorgath exchange. It's deep space, lawless. We can get you a ship. But Carter was already moving. The hunt had begun. The Clivax ship glided through the void, its hull a blot against the stars. Inside, the crew carried on as usual. Another successful catch. Another easy profit. The boy sat curled in a containment cell, small hands gripping his knees, face pale but calm. He didn't cry. He didn't beg. He simply waited. A low murmur passed among the slavers. It was unusual. Most creatures broke down by now, their terror feeding the crew's amusement. This one did not. The captain dismissed it. He was just a child. A weak, inconsequential creature. And yet, the unease lingered. Something was wrong. Carter moved through the underbelly of the smuggler station like a phantom. No wasted steps. No hesitation. The filth of the galactic underworld slithered away at his presence. Hardened killers averting their eyes, muttering his name in hushed fear. He reached the information broker without a word. A withered alien. 3 sets of pupils dilating in unmistakable terror. You know why I'm here, Carter said, voice like a blade. The alien did. It nodded frantically, fingers trembling as they keyed into the console. A star map flickered to life. A route. A name. The Clivax ship. Carter memorized it in a glance. Payment, the alien croaked. Carter turned. Your payment is that I leave. The broker swallowed. Understood. And then Carter was gone, a shadow melting into the dark. Zalvok frowned at the incoming transmission. The message was unexpected. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. You have something of mine. The Clivax commander leaned back, mandibles clicking. We have many things. Be specific. You took a child from Earth. Zalvok let out a hissing laugh. Ah, and what? Human? You expect us to return it? There was silence. A long, measured pause. Then the voice came again. Softer. I am coming for you. A shiver ran through the room. Something about the way the words were spoken. Something cold, something final. Zalvok smirked. Let him come. The transmission cut. The laughter of the crew echoed through the ship. They had no idea. No idea what had just been unleashed. The stars blurred past the cockpit as Carter piloted the stolen vessel through the void, his hands steady, his mind already calculating. He was coming, and nothing would stop him. The ship was silent. Not the usual hum of machinery, not the distant chatter of crew, just an empty, suffocating stillness. It wasn't natural. It wasn't right. The surviving Clivax felt it in their cores. Something was moving among them, unseen, unstoppable. Another squad had gone dark. No response to comms, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Zalvok gritted his mandibles, his claws digging into the console. This was impossible. A single human couldn't do this. Wouldn't dare. And yet the bodies were proof. Another officer entered, panting, wide-eyed. We found Crix. He was in the ventilation shaft. Torn apart. The room tensed. Zalvok turned sharply. Torn apart by what? The officer's mandibles quivered. Not by what? By who? The words hung in the air, heavy with dread. A crackle came through the ship's intercom. Faint breathing. Then a voice, calm and patient. How many left, Captain? Zalvok snarled, slamming a claw onto the console. Who are you? A low chuckle. You already know. The line went dead. And then the lights followed. Heavy boots pounded against the metal floor as Clivax warriors rushed through the corridors, their rifles raised, their eyes darting in every direction. They were trained, experienced, deadly. But none of that mattered. Because they weren't the predators here. One of them felt a brush of movement behind him. He spun, finger tight on the trigger. Nothing. Just the endless dark. Another step. Closer. He opened his mandibles to speak. A blade slid through his throat before he made a sound. The others heard nothing, until his body hit the floor. Then the gunfire started. Wild, frantic bursts tearing through the dark. They weren't aiming. They weren't thinking. They were panicking. And in their panic, they didn't notice the figure dropping from the ceiling. A flash of steel. A snap of bone. Two more fell before the rest even realized. By the time they turned, they were already dead. The bridge was locked down, sealed with reinforced plating, every remaining soldier inside. They stood shoulder to shoulder, weapons trembling in their claws. The air was thick with fear. Zalvok stood in the center, his mind racing. The ship's internal defenses were useless, hacked, turned against them. The security doors had all been overridden. He had underestimated the human. They all had. A lieutenant turned to him, voice shaking. Captain, what do we do? Zalvok opened his mandibles. Boom. The lights exploded. A sudden rush of wind. The emergency sirens blared, warning of a hull breach. And in the crimson glow of the alarms, Zalvok saw it. A single figure standing in the doorway. Human. Unarmed. Calm. His worst nightmare made flesh. Baba Yaga had come. The bridge was in ruins, smoke curling from shattered consoles, the scent of scorched metal thick in the air. The once proud command center of the Clivax vessel was now silent, save for the crackling of sparking wires. Zalvok dragged himself across the floor, his breathing ragged. His exoskeleton was cracked, his strength failing. He had always believed in power, in dominance. The Clivax were the apex predators of the void. But now, he understood the truth. They had taken the wrong child. A figure stepped through the smoke. Human. Unharmed. Calm. Zalvok bared his mandibles, coughing up dark blood. You are a monster. The human didn't blink. I know. Zalvok lunged with the last of his strength, claws swiping for the human's throat. The movement was too slow, too weak. A blade flashed. A sharp, twisting pain bloomed in his chest. He gasped. The human pressed closer, voice barely above a whisper. You should have left my son alone. Zalvok's body hit the ground. He did not rise again. The last of the Clivax forces gathered near the main hangar, weapons raised, mandibles clacking in panicked conversation. They were the strongest warriors left, the last defense. And they were terrified. They had sealed the doors, reinforced the walls, activated the remaining auto-turrets. It wouldn't be enough. Something thumped against the outer bulkhead. The warriors turned in unison, weapons trained. Another thump. Then another. Closer. The steel bent inward. The next impact tore it apart. The humans stepped through the opening, moving like death itself. The Clivax opened fire, plasma bolts cutting through the smoke, hitting nothing. A scream. Then another. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, the human was gone. So were the warriors. The ship was lost. Fires raged unchecked, the hull groaning under its own failing structure. The self-destruct countdown echoed through the corridors, warning of imminent destruction. John Carter moved through the chaos untouched, his focus singular. He found his son exactly where they had kept him, alone, unharmed, waiting. The boy looked up, his small face calm. "Dad." John lifted him into his arms, holding him close. The ship trembled beneath them, the final moments approaching. He didn't run. He didn't rush. He simply carried his son to the last escape pod, setting him down in the seat. The hatch sealed. The countdown hit 0. The Clivax vessel became a dying star, its wreckage scattering into the void. John Carter and his son never looked back. The escape pod drifted in the void, silent, untouched by the firestorm behind it. Inside, John Carter sat with his son, the dim glow of the control panel casting shadows across their faces. The boy was quiet, watching his father with wide, steady eyes. John reached out, adjusting the straps on his son's seat. "Are you hurt?" The boy shook his head. "No." A pause. "You came." John exhaled, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "Always." The wreckage of the Clivax ship burned behind them, torn apart by its own destruction sequence. No survivors. No loose ends. John activated the distress beacon, signaling friendly forces. His work was done. For now. The Federation fleet found them within the hour. The moment John stepped off the pod, uniformed officers surrounded him, weapons lowered but ready. He felt their eyes on him. Fear, awe, uncertainty. A high-ranking officer stepped forward, lips pressed into a thin line. "You took down an entire Clivax slaver vessel. Alone." John didn't answer. The officer studied him, then the boy. "You understand what this means, don't you?" John finally met his gaze. "Yeah." His voice was calm. "It means they'll come looking." The officer nodded. "We'll protect the child. But you," he hesitated. "You're a problem now. A ghost that shouldn't exist." John didn't flinch. "Then don't look for me." The officer sighed. "You know that's not how this works." John turned, kneeling beside his son. "You're safe now. You won't see me for a while." The boy's fingers curled into his father's sleeve. "You always come back." John smiled, small, brief. "Always." Then he stood, stepping back. The soldiers moved between them. The last thing John saw was his son watching him, unblinking, unafraid. Then the doors closed. The Clivax homeworld was already in chaos. The news had spread faster than light. An entire slaver ship, gone. An entire crew, wiped out. By one man. The warlords met in secret, their voices low, their movements tense. The name whispered through the halls, a ghost of a legend they had once dismissed. Baba Yaga. A bounty was placed. A hunt declared. But even among them, there was doubt. Because if the stories were true, then John Carter wasn't the one in danger. They were. Somewhere in the dark of space, a lone ship disappeared into the void. No destination. No signal. Just a shadow among stars. Inside, John Carter checked his weapons, reloaded his magazines, and prepared. They would come. He knew that. And when they did, he would be waiting.